Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to challenge some old ideas first. You know those phrases people use like bone tired when you're really wiped out?
Yeah, or calling someone just a bag of bones.
Exactly. They sort of paint this picture of our skeleton as, I don't know, static, maybe even a bit lifeless.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, the big takeaway today, I think, is that our bones are anything but. They are just extraordinary, dynamic tissues constantly changing.
Right. It's actually your brain that gets bone tired, not your bones themselves.
Huh. Good point. And without that incredible internal support, well, we'd all be sort of creeping around like slugs, wouldn't we? No definite shape.
Definitely not a good look.
So for this deep dive, we're jumping into Chapter 6 of Human Anatomy and Physiology, the 10th edition.
Yep. Good stuff in there.
Our mission, basically, is to unpack the really important stuff, the intricate anatomy, the physiological functions, and those really dynamic processes like how bone forms, grows, repairs itself.
We want to give you a clear, comprehensive understanding. It's a fundamental system, but it's way more interesting than people often think.
Absolutely. So let's dig in. Where do we even start? The very beginning.
Well, it's pretty remarkable, actually. The human skeleton doesn't begin as bone. Not at all.
Oh, okay.
It's initially laid down as these incredibly flexible cartilages and fibrous membranes. It's only later, as we develop, that bone tissue replaces most of these.
Right, so the cartilage comes first.
Exactly, leaving just a few cartilages in adults where that flexibility is still really important.
Okay, so cartilage is like the body's first draft of a skeleton. What exactly is cartilage? How is it so flexible but also resilient? Doesn't seem like it would crack easily.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Its basic structure, well, it's primarily water. Lots of water.
Water? That seems counterintuitive for strength.
Right, but that water content is what gives it its amazing resilience, that ability to spring back after being compressed, like a really dense, high-quality sponge.
Okay, I can picture that.
And crucially, unlike bone, it has no nerves or blood vessels running through it.
No blood vessels at all.
Nope. Instead, it's surrounded by this tough connective tissue layer called the perichondrium.
Perichondrium, got it.
Think of it like a girdle holding it in. It resists outward expansion when the cartilage is squeezed, and importantly, it's the source of nutrients.
Ah, so nutrients have to diffuse from that layer into the cartilage.
Exactly. Through the matrix to the cartilage cells. And that limited supply system is actually why cartilage can't get super thick, like bone can.
Okay, that makes sense. No direct blood supply. Explains why cartilage injuries heal so slowly.
Very slowly, yeah. It's a key difference.
Now, our source material mentions 3 main types of cartilage. Can you give us the rundown on their, unique features?
Sure. So first, and the most common, are hyaline cartilages.
Hyaline.
When they're fresh, they look kind of like frosted glass. They provide support, but also flexibility and resilience. Their matrix only has fine collagen fibers.
Okay, where do we find these?
All over, really. They cover the ends of bones at movable joints. That's articular cartilage acting as cushion. They connect your ribs to your sternum, allowing your chest to expand. They form the skeleton of your larynx, your voice box. And they support your external nose, the bit you can wiggle.
Right. Lots of crucial spots, often blue in diagrams you mentioned.
Often blue, yeah. Helps to visualize.
And then there's elastic cartilage. Sounds like it has more give.
Exactly that. It's similar to hyaline, but its matrix is packed with more stretchy, elastic fibers, so it can stand up to repeated bending and just springs back into shape.
Where would we need that kind of property?
Only 2 main places, really. Your external ear, you can bend it, let go, it pops back, and the epiglottis.
The little flap in your throat.
That's the one. It covers your windpipe when you swallow. Needs to be super flexible, usually green in diagrams.
Makes perfect sense for those parts. Okay, and the last one, fibrocartilages. They sound tough.
They are the heavyweights, champions of both compressibility and great tensile strength. They have rows of chondrocytes alternating with thick collagen fibers. Super robust.
Okay, so where do we need that kind of extreme toughness?
Think places under heavy pressure and stretch, like the menisci in your knee, those pad-like cartilages taking incredible impact, and the intervertebral discs between your vertebrae. Shock absorbers for your spine.
Wow. Knees and spine. Yeah, they definitely need to be tough. Often colored red, you said.
Yep, usually red in the figures.
It's pretty amazing how perfectly designed each type is, even at this early stage. So these cartilages are the foundation, and they grow rapidly, right? How does that happen?
Right, they set the stage for bone growth. Cartilage grows in 2 main ways. There's appositional growth that's like adding layers to the outside.
Okay.
Cells in that perichondrium layer secrete new matrix onto the existing cartilage surface, building it outwards.
And the other way.
Is interstitial growth. That's growth from within. The chondrocytes, the cartilage cells themselves, divide and secrete new matrix, expanding the cartilage from the inside out.
So it grows outwards and inwards simultaneously?
Well, both happen, especially during development. Interstitial growth is really key for that early embryonic expansion. But typically, cartilage growth pretty much stops during adolescence when the skeleton matures.
Okay.
And it's really important to remember sometimes cartilage can calcify, get harder, like during bone growth or in old age. But calcified cartilage is not bone. They're always distinct tissues.
Crucial distinction. Got it. Okay, so we've got the flexible beginnings. Let's pivot to the main event. Bones. Once bone takes over, what are its main jobs? Why do we need them beyond just, holding us up?
Oh, bones do so much more. There are 7 absolutely vital functions. First, the obvious one, support.
Right, the framework.
Exactly. Provides the framework, cradles, soft organs. Think lower limb supporting your trunk, rib cage supporting your chest cavity.
And protection, naturally. Skull protecting the brain is the classic example.
Yep. And vertebrae shielding the spinal cord, the rib cage guarding the heart and lungs. Very important.
Okay, what else?
Then there's anchorage. This is all about movement.
Ah, muscles pulling on bones.
Precisely. Skeletal muscles attach via tendons, and bones act as levers. When muscles contract, they pull on the bones to create movement. Walking, grabbing things, even breathing involves bones as levers.
Okay, support, protection, anchorage. What's next?
There are also incredible storage units. Mineral and growth factor storage.
Like a bank.
Exactly like a bank. Bone is this huge reservoir for minerals, especially calcium and phosphate. These minerals are constantly being deposited and withdrawn into the bloodstream as the body needs them.
Keeping blood levels just right.
Yep. Plus, the bone matrix itself stores important growth factors, ready for release during repair or other processes.
That's clever. What else is stored?
Well, bones are crucial for blood cell formation. That's hematopoiesis.
Right, in the red marrow.
Takes place in the red marrow cavities of certain bones.
Yeah.
All your red cells, white cells, platelets made there.
Yeah.
And they also store triglycerides, or fat.
Fat. In bones.
Yep, in the yellow marrow cavities. It's basically stored energy.
Okay, 6 functions. What's the 7th? You said it was surprising.
It really is. Hormone production.
Wait, bones make hormones. Seriously.
They produce osteocalcin. It's a hormone that helps regulate insulin secretion, glucose balance, and even energy expenditure.
Wow. So my bones are talking to my pancreas and affecting my metabolism. That's huge.
It's revolutionary, honestly. For ages, we just thought of bones as scaffolding. But discovering osteocalcin shows they're active endocrine organs. They're part of the body's complex metabolic conversation.
So not just passive structures, active players.
Exactly. It fundamentally changes how we see body systems interacting. Skeletal health is directly linked to metabolic health. What affects your bones could literally impact your blood sugar management. It's wild.
Much more than just a scaffold, indeed. Okay, so we have 206 named bones in our bodies, roughly, and they're classified into 2 main groups.
That's right. First is the axial skeleton.
Axial, like the axis.
Exactly. Forms the long axis of the body, skull, vertebral column, rib cage, the central core. Their main jobs are protection, support, or carrying other parts.
Okay, and another group.
The appendicular skeleton. Think appendages, limbs.
Arms and legs.
Right. Bones of the upper and lower limbs, plus the girdles, shoulder, and hip bones that attach them to the axial skeleton. These are for locomotion, manipulating your environment, moving around, picking things up.
Makes sense. Now, bones also come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. You mentioned the tiny wrist bone versus the huge femur. Each shape has a purpose. How do we classify them by shape?
We group them into 4 main classes. First, long bones.
Like the femur.
Yep. But also the bones in your fingers, surprisingly. They're considerably longer than they are wide.
Oh.
Typically a shaft with 2 expanded ends. It's about the shape, not just the overall size.
Okay, longer than wide. Got it. Next.
Short bones. These are roughly cube-shaped. Think wrist bones, carpals, and ankle bones, tarsals.
Like little blocks.
Pretty much. And there's a special type called sesamoid bones.
Sesame seed shape.
Exactly. Like your kneecap, the patella. They form within tendons, often help redirect the tendon's pull.
Interesting. Okay, what about flat bones?
These are thin, flattened, and often a bit curved. Your sternum, your ribs, most of the big skull bones protecting your brain, those are flat bones.
Right, like plates. And the last category.
Irregular bones.
Yeah.
These are the ones with complicated shapes that just don't fit neatly into the other groups.
Like vertebrae.
Vertebrae are a perfect example.
Yeah.
And your hip bones. Very complex, irregular shapes.
It really drives home that bones are organs containing all these different tissues: bone, nerve, cartilage, connective tissue, even muscle and epithelial tissue in their blood vessels. Let's look at the gross anatomy now. What are the two main types of bone tissue we see?
Right. Every bone has a dense outer layer that's compact bone. Looks smooth and solid.
True hard shell.
Exactly. And internal to that is spongy bone, also called trabecular bone.
Spongy, like a kitchen sponge.
Structurally, maybe a bit like a natural sea sponge. It's a honeycomb of small, needle-like or flat pieces called trabeculae.
Trabeculae.
And in living bone, those open spaces between the trabeculae are filled with red or yellow bone marrow.
So how does this compact spongy arrangement look in, say, short, irregular, and flat bones?
They have a simpler structure, basically thin plates of spongy bone, sometimes called diplo, especially in the skull, sandwiched between two layers of compact bone, like an Oreo cookie almost.
Huh, okay. Compact outside, spongy inside.
Yep, no distinct shaft or ends, no defined marrow cavity, but marrow fills the spaces within the spongy bone.
But a long bone like the humerus in your arm is different, more complex.
Much more complex, yeah. A typical long bone has a tubular diaphysis, the shaft, that's mostly a thick collar of compact bone surrounding a central medullary cavity, or marrow cavity.
And that's where the yellow marrow is in adults, the fat storage.
That's right, yellow marrow cavity in adults.
And the ends.
Those are the epiphyses. They're broader than the shaft. They have an outer shell of compact bone, but the interior is mostly spongy bone.
Makes sense. Lighter, but still strong at the ends.
Exactly. And crucially, the joint surface of each epiphysis is covered with a thin layer of articular cartilage that's hyaline cartilage.
The smooth stuff for joints?
Yep. Provides a smooth, slippery surface to reduce friction and absorb stress during movement.
And you mentioned something about a line that tells a growth story, the epiphyseal line.
Ah, yes. The epiphyseal line. It's a remnant. In adults, it's just a line, but in children and adolescents, it was the epiphyseal plate.
The growth plate.
The growth plate, exactly. A disc of hyaline cartilage that's actively growing to lengthen the bone. Once growth stops, it ossifies and becomes that epiphyseal line.
The area where the shaft meets the end.
That flared portion is sometimes called the metaphysis. It includes the epiphyseal plate region.
Okay, what about the membranes covering and lining the bone? They sound important.
It's very important. On the outside, covering almost the entire bone surface except for the joints, is the periosteum. It's double-layered.
Double.
Yep, an outer fibrous layer, which is tough connective tissue, and an inner osteogenic layer.
Osteogenic bone generating.
Exactly. It contains primitive stem cells, the osteogenic cells, that can differentiate into most other bone cells for growth or repair. It's also rich in nerves and blood vessels, which enter the bone through little holes called nutrient foramina.
Wow, so it's not just a wrapper, it's active.
Very active. And it's anchored firmly to the bone by collagen fibers, providing strong points for tendons and ligaments to attach.
Okay, that's the outside coat. What about inside?
Inside, lining all the internal surfaces, the trabeculae of spongy bone, the canals and compact bone, is a delicate membrane called the endosteum.
Endo meaning inside.
Right. And like the inner periosteum, it also contains those osteogenic cells ready for bone remodeling or repair.
You mentioned red marrow earlier for blood cell formation. Where is that hematopoietic tissue actually located in adults compared to infants?
Good question. In adults, red marrow is mostly found in the trabecular cavities of spongy bone, specifically in places like the heads of the femur and humerus, the diplo of flat bones like your sternum, and irregular bones like the hip bone.
So not in the main shaft cavity anymore.
Not usually, no. That's mostly yellow marrow, fat in adults. But in newborn infants, it's different. The medullary cavity of all long bones and all spongy bone areas contain red marrow. They need massive blood cell production.
Makes sense for a growing baby.
And interestingly, that yellow marrow in adults can convert back to red marrow if the body needs it, like in cases of severe anemia. It's like an emergency reserve.
Clever backup system. Now, bones aren't perfectly smooth, are they? They have bumps, ridges, holes. Bone markings, what's their deal?
Bone markings. They're super important functional. They're not random. They're like the bone's functional anatomy etched onto the surface.
So they tell a story.
Absolutely. Projections like heads, trochanters, spines are often sites where muscles, ligaments, or tendons attach. The stress from these attachments actually causes the bone to build up there.
So bigger muscles mean bigger bumps.
Generally, yes. And depressions or openings, fossa, foramina, grooves, usually allow nerves and blood vessels to pass through or form joint surfaces. They're all about optimizing the bone's function.
Gotcha. Okay, let's zoom in even further now. Microscopic level. Bone tissue has 5 major cell types.
5 key players, yes. First, the osteogenic cells, also called osteoprogenitor cells.
The stem cells.
The stem cells, exactly, found in the periosteum and endosteum. They're mitotically active and can differentiate into osteoblasts or bone lining cells when stimulated. Source of new builders.
Okay, so they become the builders, the osteoblasts.
Right. Osteoblasts are the active bone-forming cells. They secrete the unmineralized bone matrix called osteoid.
Osteoid, that's the organic part.
Yep. Mostly collagen and calcium-binding proteins. Osteoblasts are busy laying down this matrix, and when they get completely surrounded by the matrix they've secreted, they mature into osteocytes.
Ah, so the builders become residents. The osteocytes, what do they do once they're trapped?
The osteocytes are the mature bone cells living in little spaces called lacunae within the hard matrix. They're crucial. They act as stress or strain sensors.
Sensors.
Yeah. They monitor the condition of the bone matrix and communicate with the cells on the surface, the osteoblasts and osteoclasts, to direct bone remodeling, making sure bone is added or removed where needed to maintain strength and calcium balance. They're like the bone's maintenance crew or engineers.
Okay, and then bone lining cells.
These are flat cells found on bone surfaces where remodeling isn't actively happening. They're thought to help maintain the matrix, sort of like resting osteoblasts. On the outside, they're periosteal cells, inside endosteal cells.
And the last type, the ones that break down bone, osteoclasts. They sound important too.
Oh, incredibly important and quite different. Osteoclasts are giant multinucleate cells. They actually come from the same hematopoietic stem cells that produce macrophages.
So related to immune cells. Interesting.
Their job is bone resorption, breaking down bone. When active, they settle onto a bone surface and form a distinctive ruffled border.
Ruffled border.
Yeah, it increases their surface area. From this border, they secrete protons, creating an acidic environment that dissolves the mineral salts and lysosomal enzymes that digest the organic matrix. It's like they're etching away the bone.
Wow, quite the process. Dissolving and digesting.
And the components they release, calcium, phosphate, amino acids, go back into the interstitial fluid and bloodstream. Recycling.
Okay, let's look at compact bone structure now. It looks solid, but you said it's intricate. Tell us about the osteon.
Right. The osteon or haversian system is the fundamental structural unit of compact bone. Think of it as an elongated cylinder oriented parallel to the long axis of the bone, like a tiny weight-bearing pillar. Each osteon is made of concentric layers, or tubes, of bone matrix called lamellae, like tree rings.
Lamellae. Okay, layers.
But here's the genius part. The collagen fibers within a single lamella all run in one direction, but the fibers in adjacent lamellae run in different directions. They alternate.
Why do they do that?
It's a brilliant design to resist torsion, or twisting forces. It makes the osteon, and thus the whole bone, incredibly strong against twisting. A twister resistor.
Clever engineering. But if it's so solid, how do the osteocytes trapped inside get nutrients?
Through an intricate network of canals. Running through the core of each osteon is the central canal, or haversian canal. It contains small blood vessels and nerve fibers.
The main supply line for that osteon.
Exactly. Yeah. Then running perpendicular to the central canals are the perforating canals, or Volkmann's canals.
Perpendicular, connecting things.
Yep, they connect the blood and nerve supply from the periosteum and the medullary cavity to the central canals, linking everything up.
Okay, big canals. What about reaching the individual cells?
That's where the canaliculi come in. Tiny, hair-like canals.
Kind of like you little canals.
Precisely. They connect the lacunae, where the osteocytes live, to each other and to the central canal. Osteocytes have cytoplasmic extensions that reach through these canaliculi to touch neighboring cells.
So they form a network.
A complete network. Nutrients diffuse from the central canal blood vessels through the canaliculi to reach all the osteocytes, and wastes pass back out. It overcomes the barrier of the hard matrix. It's like a microscopic plumbing system.
Incredible. Are there other types of lamellae besides the ones in osteons?
Yes, there are interstitial lamellae.
Right.
These fill the gaps between osteons, or are remnants of older remodeled osteons, and circumferential lamellae, which wrap around the entire circumference of the diaphysis, just deep to the periosteum and superficial to the endosteum. They help resist twisting of the whole bone shaft.
Okay, that covers compact bone's detailed structure. What about spongy bone? You said it looks haphazard, but isn't.
Right, it looks less organized, but its trabeculae are actually precisely aligned along lines of stress. like internal struts or braces, providing strength exactly where needed, but without the weight of solid, compact bone.
So form follows function even there.
Absolutely. And importantly, spongy bone has no osteons. The osteocytes are still in lacunae within the trabeculae, but they get their nutrients by diffusion from capillaries in the endosteum that covers the trabeculae. Much simpler delivery system.
So where does bone get its remarkable strength and durability? What's the chemical secret?
It's all about the combination. The precise mix of organic and inorganic components. Get that balance right? And bone is incredibly strong, durable, but also flexible enough not to be brittle. Nature's composite material.
Okay, let's break that down. The organic parts first.
The organic components include the cells, osteogenic cells, osteoblasts, osteocytes, bone-lining cells, osteoclasts, and the osteoid. That osteoid matrix makes up about a third of the total matrix mass.
Then osteoid is mostly
Ground substance and collagen fibers, secreted by the osteoblasts. Collagen is key here. It provides tensile strength resistance to stretch and twisting and flexibility.
flexibility from collagen.
And
Okay.
here's something amazing. Bone's resilience, its ability to resist fracture upon impact, comes partly from sacrificial bonds.
Sacrificial bonds. What on earth are those? That sounds dramatic.
It kind of is. These are bonds within or between collagen molecules that are designed to break first under impact.
Like tiny molecular fuses.
Exactly. So when the bone takes a hit, instead of the whole structure cracking, these sacrificial bonds break, absorbing and dissipating the energy. This prevents a bigger fracture.
Wow. And do they reform?
Yes, remarkably, they often reform afterwards. It's a key part of what makes healthy bones so resilient to everyday bumps and stresses without constantly breaking. Much tougher than it looks.
That is absolutely mind-blowing. Okay, so that's the organic, flexible, resilient part. What about the inorganic components, the hardness?
The inorganic part makes up about 65% of bone mass. It's mainly mineral salts, primarily calcium phosphates, which are present as tiny, tightly packed crystals called hydroxyapatites.
Hydroxyapats. Okay.
These crystals are embedded in and around the collagen fibers. They are what give bone its exceptional hardness and its ability to resist compression.
How hard are we talking?
Healthy bone is incredibly hard. It's about half as strong as steel in resisting compression and just as strong as steel in resisting tension, which is amazing for a biological tissue.
No wonder bones can last so long after death.
Exactly. That mineral component is why we have skeletal remains that provide so much information about ancient peoples.
Okay, moving from composition to development. This whole process of bone formation, ossification, or osteogenesis, it's a journey, isn't it? Starts early, continues for years.
Really is a continuous journey. It begins in the embryo to form the bony skeleton. Then it continues throughout childhood and adolescence for growth. And even after we stop growing, it shifts into remodeling and repair, which happens throughout our entire lives.
And the early skeleton isn't even bone. You mentioned flexible blueprints.
That's right. Before about week 8 of embryonic development, the skeleton is entirely made of fibrous membranes and hyaline cartilage
Why start with flexible stuff?
because it allows for really rapid growth. Cartilage can grow quickly by cell division. If it started as rigid bone right away, growing would be much more difficult and constrained. Bone only starts replacing these flexible models around week 8.
So how does bone replace that cartilage model? Most bones follow a specific process, right?
Yes, most bones below the base of the skull, except for the clavicles, form by endochondral ossification.
Endochondral meaning within cartilage.
Precisely. Bone develops by replacing a pre-existing hyaline cartilage model. You can think of the cartilage as a temporary scaffold. It grows, then breaks down, and then bone tissue invades and replaces it, building a much stronger permanent structure.
So cartilage sets the stage, then bone takes over.
That's the essence of it. It's a complex series of steps, especially for long bones, involving bone collars, calcification, invasion by blood vessels and cells, and the formation of primary and secondary ossification centers. But the key idea is replacement of a cartilage template.
Okay, but what about flat bones like the skull and the clavicles? They don't use a cartilage model.
Correct. They form through intramembranous ossification.
Intramembranous within a membrane.
Right again. Bone develops directly from a fibrous connective tissue membrane. Mesenchymal cells within the membrane differentiate directly into osteoblasts.
Skipping the cartilage step.
Exactly. These osteoblasts secrete osteoid, it calcifies. Trapped osteoblasts become osteocytes, and woven bone trabeculae form. This eventually gets remodeled into the compact bone plates and spongy bone diploid, typical of flat bones,
Two distinct ways to build bone. Okay, after birth, how do our bones keep growing, especially the long bones getting longer?
Postnatal bone growth happens in two ways. For length, longitudinal growth, it all happens in the epiphyseal plates.
The growth plates we talked about earlier.
Yep. The cartilage in those plates keeps proliferating on the side facing the epiphysis, pushing the end of the bone further away from the shaft.
So the cartilage grows.
Right. And on the side closer to the diaphysis, the older cartilage cells hypertrophy, the matrix calcifies, the cells die, and then osteoblasts invade and replace the calcified cartilage with new bone tissue.
It's like a little factory constantly adding length.
Exactly like a factory. There are distinct zones within the plate: resting, proliferation, hypertrophic, calcification, ossification, each doing its part. This whole process continues until adolescence ends.
And then the plate closes.
Then the plate closes. The cartilage cells stop dividing, and the plate gets completely replaced by bone, leaving behind that epiphyseal line. And that's it for height increase, usually around 18 for females, 21 for males.
Okay, so that's lengths. What about width? Bones get thicker too, right? They don't stay spindly.
Right, they grow in thickness or diameter by appositional growth.
Adding layers, like the cartilage did.
Similar idea, yes. Osteoblasts beneath the periosteum secrete new bone matrix onto the external bone surface, making the bone wider.
Okay, building up the outside.
But, crucially, at roughly the same time, osteoclasts on the internal endochondral surface remove bone from the lining of the medullary cavity.
Why remove bone from the inside?
So the bone doesn't become excessively heavy and maintains proper proportions. The diameter increases, the cortex thickens, but the marrow cavity also widens. It keeps the bone strong but relatively light.
Clever balancing act. Now, all this growth must be controlled somehow. Hormones play a big role.
A huge role. It's like a symphony of hormones, especially during infancy, childhood, and adolescence. The main conductor during infancy and childhood is growth hormone from the pituitary gland.
Stimulating the growth plates.
Primarily, yes, driving that longitudinal growth.
Are other hormones involved?
Definitely. Thyroid hormones are also crucial. They modulate the activity of growth hormone, ensuring the skeleton develops with the proper proportions, like making sure everything grows in sync.
And puberty brings more changes.
Big time. At puberty, sex hormones, testosterone in males, estrogens in females kick in. Initially, they promote that dramatic adolescent growth spurt. You shoot up in height.
Right, the awkward teenage years.
Yeah. But later on, these same sex hormones actually induce the closure of the epiphyseal plates.
So they trigger the end of growth too.
Exactly. They turn off the growth factory, signaling the end of longitudinal bone growth.
And if this hormonal symphony gets out of tune, like too much or too little growth hormone,
then you can get significant issues. Too much growth hormone in childhood leads to gigantism, very tall stature. Too little growth hormone or deficits in thyroid hormone can cause different types of dwarfism. Shows just how critical that hormonal balance is.
It's amazing. Bones aren't just built and left alone. This constant remodeling, recycling 5–7% of bone mass weekly. Why bother? Why not just keep the bone we have?
It seems counterintuitive, maybe, but this continuous bone remodeling the balance between bone deposit by osteoblasts and bone resorption by osteoclasts is absolutely vital. Primarily, it prevents bones from becoming too brittle. Spongy bone gets replaced every 3–4 years, compact bone about every 10 years. If bone stays put too long, the calcium salts can crystallize more, making it harder but also more fragile, more likely to fracture. Remodeling keeps it fresh and resilient.
Okay, keeps it from getting old and brittle. So how does the deposit side work? Laying down new bone.
Bone deposit starts with osteoblasts, laying down that osteoid seam, the unmineralized organic matrix.
The framework again.
Right. Then there's a distinct transition zone called the calcification front, where the mineralization actually happens. The osteoid has to mature for about a week before it's ready to calcify.
What triggers the calcification?
It seems to depend on local concentrations of calcium and phosphate ions reaching a critical level, triggering hydroxyapatite crystal formation. Plus, certain matrix proteins that bind calcium and the enzyme alkaline phosphatase secreted by osteoblasts are essential for mineralization to occur properly.
Okay, that's building up. What about the other side? Bone resorption. How do osteoclasts break it down?
Those giant osteoclasts latch onto the bone surface, form that sealed compartment with their ruffled border.
Right, the etching process.
And they pump out protons, hydrogen ions, to make the area acidic, which dissolves the mineral salts. At the same time, they release lysosomal enzymes that digest the organic matrix, the collagen and proteins.
Dissolving and digesting. Efficient.
Very. And then they phagocytize the debris and release the digested products, including calcium and phosphate, into the interstitial fluid and blood, ready for reuse or excretion.
So what controls this constant back and forth of deposit and resorption? It can't be random.
Definitely not random. It's tightly regulated by genetic factors and two main control loops. One is primarily hormonal, focusing on maintaining blood calcium homeostasis. The other respond to mechanical stress.
Okay, let's tackle the hormonal loop first. Maintaining blood calcium seems to be the priority, even over bone mass.
Absolutely. Maintaining blood calcium within a very narrow range is critical for so many functions. Nerve impulses, muscle contraction, blood clotting, gland secretions, cell division, you name it.
It's that important.
Life or death important. Over 99% of the body's calcium is stored in bone, so bone acts as a huge buffer. The hormonal loop's main job is keeping that blood level stable, drawing from or adding to the bone bank as needed.
And the key hormone is
Parathyroid hormone, or PTH, from the parathyroid glands.
PTH.
When blood calcium levels drop, PTH is released. Its main effect: it stimulates osteoclasts to resorb bone, releasing calcium into the blood.
Bringing levels back up.
Exactly. As blood calcium rises, PTH release is inhibited, a classic negative feedback loop. Calcitonin from the thyroid gland has a minor opposing effect, but PTH is the major player in humans.
What happens if that calcium balance goes wrong? Too low or too high?
Big problems. Hypocalcemia, low calcium, causes neurons and muscles to become hyperexcitable. You can get muscle twitches, cramps, even convulsions, tetany.
Scary. And too high.
Hypercalcemia, high calcium, makes nerve and muscle cells less responsive, can lead to sluggishness, weakness, confusion, and in severe cases, kidney stones or calcium deposits in soft tissues. The balance is crucial.
You also mentioned other hormones potentially influencing bone, like leptin from fat cells and serotonin from the gut. That connection is fascinating.
It really is an emerging area. Leptin, known for appetite control, might also inhibit bone formation, possibly via signals through the brain and sympathetic nerves. It suggests a link between body fat and bone density that we're still exploring.
And serotonin?
Yeah, most serotonin is made in the gut. It seems that after you eat, serotonin might circulate and inhibit osteoblasts. Perhaps a way to ensure calcium from your meal doesn't just get immediately locked into bone when blood levels are already rising. It hints at this complex gut-brain skeleton communication network.
Mind-boggling connections. Okay, so that's the hormonal control, mainly for calcium levels. What about the second control loop, mechanical stress?
Where mechanical stress determines where remodeling occurs. It ensures bone structure adapts to the loads it experiences. This is governed by Wolff's Law.
Wolff's Law, what does it state?
Basically, that bone grows or remodels in response to the demands placed upon it. Load a bone, it gets stronger. Don't load it, it gets weaker.
So if I lift weights, my bones respond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you put weight on a bone or muscles pull on it, it bends slightly. This creates compression on one side and tension on the other. The bone remodels to better withstand these forces.
So that explains why long bones are thickest in the middle of the shaft.
Exactly, where bending stresses are usually greatest. It's why your dominant arm might have slightly thicker bones. Why weightlifters develop prominent bony projections where their large muscles attach.
And the internal structure, the trabeculae and spongy bone.
They align themselves precisely along the lines of stress, like tiny internal trusses supporting the load efficiently. Conversely, bones of a fetus or someone bedridden lack these strong markings and density because they aren't subjected to those stresses.
Use it or lose it for bones, too. So how does the bone know where the stress is?
We think electrical signals generated when bone deforms play a role, and also the way fluid flows through the canaliculi under pressure seems to signal to osteocytes where stress is occurring, guiding the osteoblasts and osteoclasts.
Okay, so let's sum up the interplay. Hormones and stress.
Hormonal controls dictate whether and when remodeling happens, primarily to keep blood calcium stable. Mechanical stress dictates where remodeling happens, ensuring the skeleton remains strong enough for the loads it encounters.
So PTH might say release calcium, but Wolff's Law tells it take it from the areas under least stress first.
That's a great way to think about it. The body prioritizes calcium levels, but tries to do it in a way that minimally compromises skeletal strength where it's most needed.
Okay. Now, despite all this strength and remodeling, bones can still break. Fractures. How does the body repair such a hard tissue?
It's a remarkable repair process. First, fractures are classified based on bone end position, non-displaced versus displaced, completeness of the break, skin penetration, open compound versus closed simple. Treatment usually involves reduction, realigning the ends, either manually closed or surgically open, followed by immobilization in a cast or traction.
And then the healing begins, 4 stages.
4 main stages, yes.
Whoa.
Stage 1, hematoma formation.
A big bruise.
Essentially, blood vessels in the bone and periosteum tear, creating a clot, a hematoma. Bone cells deprived of nutrition die, causing swelling, pain, inflammation. The clean begins.
Okay, stage 1 is the immediate aftermath. Stage 2.
Fibrocartilaginous callus formation. Within a few days, capillaries grow into the hematoma. Phagocytes clear debris. Fibroblasts arrive and produce collagen fibers spanning the break. Chondroblasts secrete cartilage matrix. Osteoblasts begin forming spongy bone. This whole mass of repair tissue collagen cartilage early bone forms the soft callus.
Like a temporary splint made of soft tissue.
Exactly, it connects the broken ends.
Then it hardens. Stage 3.
Bony callus formation. Starting within about a week, new bone trabeculae appear in that soft callus, gradually converting it into a hard, bony callus made of spongy bone. This continues until a firm union forms, usually around 2 months later, though it varies.
Okay, so now it's bridged with actual bone. Stage 4.
Bone remodeling. This starts during bony callus formation and continues for months, sometimes years. The bony callus is remodeled. Osteoclasts remove excess material on the outside and inside the medullary cavity. Compact bone is laid down to reconstruct the shaft walls.
So it reshapes itself back to normal.
Amazingly so. The final structure strongly resembles the original unbroken bone because it's now responding to the same mechanical stresses again, optimizing its shape according to Wolff's law.
Incredible healing power. But sometimes things go wrong with bone health overall. What are some common bone disorders resulting from imbalances?
Right. Imbalances between deposit and resorption underlie most skeletal diseases. One group includes osteomalacia and rickets.
Soft bones?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Bones are inadequately mineralized. Osteoid is produced, but calcium salts aren't deposited properly, so bones are soft and weak. Osteomalacia is the adult form, causing pain when bearing weight.
Add rickets.
Rickets is the childhood version, much more severe because bones are still growing. Leads to bowed legs, deformities of the pelvis, skull, rib cage. You see enlarged, abnormally long epiphyseal plates because the cartilage isn't calcifying properly to be replaced by bone.
What causes these?
Usually insufficient calcium in the diet or, more commonly, a vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin D is crucial for absorbing calcium from the gut. Treatment often involves vitamin D supplements and sunlight exposure.
Okay. And the big one, especially for older adults, osteoporosis.
Yes, osteoporosis is very common. It's when bone resorption significantly outpaces bone deposit. The chemical composition of the matrix is normal, but there's just less bone mass overall. Bones become porous, light, and extremely fragile.
So they break easily.
Very easily. Even minor traumas like a sneeze or stepping off a curb can cause fractures. Common sites are the spine, compression fractures, and the neck of the femur, hip fractures.
What puts someone at higher risk?
Age is a major factor. It's particularly common in postmenopausal women because estrogen levels drop, and estrogen normally helps restrain osteoclast activity. Other risks include being petite, lack of weight-bearing exercise, poor diet, low calcium protein, smoking, certain hormone conditions, and even some medications. Immobility is also a big factor.
What can be done about it? Treatment and prevention.
Treatment often involves calcium and vitamin D supplements, weight-bearing exercise. Medications include bisphosphonates, which slow down osteoclasts, SERMs, selective estrogen receptor modulators that mimic estrogen's effects on bone, and newer antibody therapies like denosumab. Prevention is key. Building maximal bone mass when young with good diet and exercise, avoiding smoking and excessive alcohol, and maintaining activity throughout life.
Makes sense to build a strong bone bank early. One more disorder, Paget's disease. How is that different?
Paget's disease is quite strange. It involves excessive and haphazard bone deposit and resorption. It's like remodeling gone wild and uncoordinated.
Haphazard.
Yeah, it results in abnormally high ratio of spongy bone to compact bone, and the new bone, called Pagetic bone, is formed hastily and has reduced mineralization. So despite often being enlarged, the bones are weak and deform easily.
Does it affect the whole skeleton?
Usually it's localized, affecting specific bones like the spine, pelvis, femur, or skull. Can cause pain, deformity, fractures. The cause is unknown, though a slow viral infection is suspected by some researchers.
Wow. We've covered a massive amount today, from cartilage beginnings to complex remodeling and repair. It really underscores how dynamic the skeletal system is.
Absolutely. Far from that static, lifeless image, it's constantly renewing, adapting, responding Truly an engineering marvel.
And we saw that predictable timetable, fetal development, childhood growth spurts fueled by hormones, the balance in young adulthood, and then the gradual shift where resorption starts to dominate with age.
There's a lifelong process of change.
This deep dive really hammered home for me how interconnected everything is. Your skin making vitamin D that your bones desperately need for calcium absorption,
Hmm.
or the literal pull of your muscles actively shaping your bones day by day, making them stronger where you push them. It's this constant conversation happening inside us.
It truly is, influencing our movement, our health, in ways we're still fully uncovering.
It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If bones are constantly listening and adapting to stress, what other parts of our body, maybe ones we think of as fixed, are also quietly responding to our lives in ways we just haven't figured out yet? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the truly fascinating world of bones and skeletal tissues. We hope you feel you have a much clearer picture of this remarkable system now.
It was great exploring it with you.
Until next time, keep exploring the wonders within you.